Alright, ladies and gentlemen, Sawyer's Comic Reviews here with a review for Young Justice #1, 2019. Let's just jump into it. This was an interesting issue. I've been watching a lot of, I've been watching Young Justice because I do have the DC app, and the third season has finally came out. It's 3 episodes in so far. So, I've been watching Young Justice, and when I saw this book in the news, my, recommended books or whatever, on the Comixology app, I was like, yeah, let me check it out. And I'm sure that's no coincidence that a Young Justice book has been put out at the same time as the cartoon has got a new season. Even though the teams are very different. I mean, this lineup is almost besides Superboy and Robin is almost not even at all the same as the Young Justice lineup we have in the cartoon. But it's an interesting issue. I don't know exactly how much I really enjoyed it, but let's go ahead and get into it. Why don't we? So we start the book off with this kind of like mysterious character that I don't think we really supposed to know who he is, but he's wearing like a cloak and he walks up in this like altar or throne room or whatever, and he's talking about a place called Earth. So right off the bat we know that this is not Earth that we're at, and he's essentially trying to get like approval to go to Earth, because apparently like the way to Earth has been lost, but they've recently rediscovered how to get there or whatnot. And he starts talking about these 7 crises that the Earth has been through, and they've been able to survive them. And I'm not sure if they're really supposed to be like, I'm assuming they're kind of talking about like Crisis on Infinite Earths and all the other Idenia Crisis and all the other stuff that's been, all the big events that's happened in DC's history. I'm assuming that's what they're talking about, but I'm not 100% sure. But regardless, so this guy is basically talking about how if they go to Earth, they might be able to help figure out what's going on in their world or whatever. Or, and there's all kinds of stuff that's been happening, supposedly. A lot of this information you just kind of like get hinted at you, and you're just like reading between the lines, but apparently their world is in crisis itself, and they blame Earth because of it, because for some reason Earth has been able to better handle itself, and I guess they are jealous or whatever. I don't know. It was, like I said, it was kind of, the information wasn't clearly delivered to me. I don't know if I was just reading it wrongly or not comprehending it or what, but then it's revealed that we're actually on Gem World, which is a place from the Amalus Princess of Gem World maxi series from way back in the 80s. I'm sure it's been reused over the years, but originally Gem World was this place in this 12-issue miniseries that was, it was pretty popular. I mean, I enjoyed it at least. But as far as I'm aware, Gem World has not really been a very established thing in the DC universe for many years. But I could be wrong again. But anyways, we basically see that Dark Opal, who's one of the kind of like, he's basically one of the rulers of the seven gem kingdoms or whatever. He's kind of like the evil ruler. He's kind of a dictator or whatever. He basically like okays the attack on Earth. To send a group of people to do whatever they're gonna do on Earth. And we get a really cool close up of him. I've always liked his character design. He's a really cool looking character. And we just get this really menacing face shot of him. But then we get a change of scenery to Metropolis when this cop is pulling over a girl that's in a kind of a beat down truck, and apparently it has no tail light or whatever, so that's why he pulls her over. She gets out of the car, and he sees that she has a bunch of guns in the car, like shotguns and stuff, and this really big old tarp of stuff in the back. She basically looks very suspicious. There's a lot of stuff that's giving off red lights to the cop, and she basically starts talking about how she's not from here. She drove all the way from some part of Texas to get to Metropolis, which I would love to know how far Texas is from Metropolis. And so she keeps talking about how like her dad gave her the shotgun and stuff, and where she's from, if you don't have a shotgun in your car, but she doesn't get to finish that line because then stuff starts happening. But we do get kind of a cool little scene where she basically reveals that she's Jenny Hex, which of course means that she's Jonah Hex's daughter. I mean, obviously that's what that's implying. I never knew that Jonah Hex had a kid. I didn't know that was in the continuity or whatever. I don't know if she's a new character or that she's been established before. But I like her. She's pretty interesting so far, and I've always liked Jonah Hex as a character. It's also implied, they don't say for sure, but it's implied that this girl might be from the future, because I don't know if you guys remember, but in the 80s they had a whole comic book series called Hex, where Jonah Hex was transported into the future seconds before he was supposed to die in the history books, and he became like a cyborg future like bounty hunter guy or whatever, and it's possible that he might have had a baby. So it's possible that he could have had a kid while he was in the future, before he came back to the past. Because at the end of that series, he does get brought back to the past at the same place he was brought before he died, and he dies in like the way he was supposed to die in history. But the only reason why I say it's implied that she's from the future is because later in the issue, she pulls a gun out of her storage, like out of her tarp of stuff that it's her belongings. And it's this very like kind of primitive looking, but at the same time it looks like a future gun. It's like a ray gun or an energy blaster gun, and it's obviously not like a normal weapon that you would have as a citizen of Texas. So definitely, I get the impression that at least either her dad like gave it to her, or from the future, or she's from the future. Anyway, I'm talking too much about this character, but I did like the character. I thought the character was fun. It was a very interjective character, very energized, hyperkinetic character. So basically, what happens after that is, while she's being, pulled over by the cop, a bunch of the soldiers of Gem World pop through a portal or whatever and start attacking people, killing people, causing ruckus. They keep demanding that they have an audience with Superman. They're trying to bring Superman out. Jenny Hex saves the cop, pulls him out of the way of a debris. She starts shooting at the guys just like out of nowhere, like the badass she is. One of the soldiers just looks surprised, like a human's actually gonna hit him, and he goes to attack her. But then Robin pops out of nowhere and saves her, and then she's like, "What are you doing here, Robin? And I thought you were a Gotham City folk or whatever." And then all of a sudden we get a little flashback from 5 minutes before, when we see that Robin was in Metropolis, just chilling, when he runs into Wonder Girl, who's also in Metropolis because she's going to school in Metropolis, and they start kind of having they have a little conversation, how you would if you met somebody you knew at the grocery store that you hadn't seen in a while, and they start chatting. But then they see the stuff happening from where they're at, and they decide to suit up. Well, Robin decides to suit up. He makes a joke about they should team up, be a brave and the bold kind of thing. But Wonder Girl seems very hesitant to jump into the fray, so she stays back. And Robin's like, "Okay, I don't understand why, but I gotta go do this." But she ends up popping up a few pages later to save Robin. She comes in clutch, and that's basically what keeps happening in this book. Is that characters keep being introduced as they're saving other characters. Basically the Young Justice team is not assembled until this fight happens, and the members the people that are in Young Justice just happen to be in the close proximity, and they just happen to be answering the call of battle, and they all pop up at the same point, and they start fighting together. Because after this happens, a little girl's about to be killed, and then Impulse runs in and saves her, and we find out that Impulse was actually going to Canada because he wanted to join Alpha, which that gets cut off, which is obviously a joke about Alpha Flight. But he decides to come to Metropolis to help out. So while they're fighting, let me roll back a little bit. Well, there's also a Green Lantern character who's apparently a teenage Green Lantern, which I didn't know that was a thing. I've never heard of this character before, but apparently it's a character. I think it's a girl, because you don't actually see the character. You just see the armor that the person's inside of. But I think it's a girl from the cover. But in these ways, that person pops up and starts helping out. So they're all like a team. And that person is very, very inexperienced. They've never been in this kind of thing before. They're making all these jokes, or not really jokes, but just comments "Hey guys, I don't really know what to do here. You mind helping me?" Stuff like that. Kid Flash is very, very excited. He starts talking about how he starts talking like kind of very vague. He's like, "Hey, it's happening, it's happening, it's happening," and Robin's like, "What's happening?" And Kid Flash, no, Impulse is like, "We've been assembled. Young Justice is back, guys!" And he starts getting all excited, and then everybody's like, "Dude, we're not a team. We didn't sign a contract. It's very." It was very tongue in cheek, and that actually is my biggest complaint with this issue is that there's just way too much. There's way too many quirks and like just like funny dialogue, or what's meant to be funny dialogue that just kind of feels like it's trying too hard. There's just way too much. Like there's way too much situational awareness or situational humor. I don't know. I felt like they were just beating me over the head with the jokes and stuff after a while. I love comedy. I'm fine with comedy in comics, especially when it's from a character that's established to be a comical character, like Impulse. I'm used to Impulse making jokes, so it's fine. But like there was just a lot of humor coming from there was a lot of like just comments coming from like Robin and Wonder Girl and stuff. It just didn't feel like it was. It just felt. And the villains were doing the same thing. Like, it's one thing for the heroes to be making quirks and wisecracks while they're fighting, but the bad guys were doing it too, and it just felt weird, because I'm not used to seeing the henchmen making all these wisecracks, and it just felt weird, and they were losing. Like, it's one thing if the bad guys are winning and they're making the wisecracks, but they're losing. Like, they keep making comments about how, like, nobody knows who they are, the Earth doesn't even know why they're mad at the Earthlings. They keep saying they keep wondering why Superman's like. They keep calling Superman a coward because he hasn't popped up. And then I think Wonder Girl says something like, "Really, you guys ain't even the same league as Superman." And then they make some other wisecracks, and then towards the end they start making this, like, the main leader starts talking. He makes a big speech about how basically saying they're retreating, but he hides it within this big speech. And all his other henchmen are like, "We're retreating, aren't we?" And he's like, "No, we're not." And the other guy's like, and then one of the other guys is like, "Yeah, we're retreating." And he's like, "Yeah, fine, we're retreating." It's just very, I don't know. It just felt really cheesy, and I didn't really like it. It was too much. I felt like. Well, as the bad guys are running away, they open a portal and start kind of going back to Gem World. Well, it's kind of I'm not really entirely sure if the heroes are actually following them or if they just kind of get pulled in as like a aftermath, because it kind of looked like Robin was actually chasing them, but some of the other characters like Jenny, it looked like she was actually getting, like, her car was getting sucked into it. So that was a little weird. But they end up getting pulled into Gem World. I'm assuming all of them, but they always show Robin and Impulse. So that's the only two characters we actually see are in Gem World, but I'm assuming they all got pulled in. But Robin and Impulse are in two different places. We see that Robin wakes up inside the throne room of Amalus, who is basically like the main hero of Gem World. And but according to this picture, it looks like she's been through some rough times. Maybe her kingdom has fallen, because it looks pretty bare in the room. It looks very bleak and dark, and she looks pretty dark compared to what she normally looks like when I've seen her. She looks pretty mean too, like she's really not having it. And she's basically put the sword up to Robin's face, and she's like, Robin's like, "Where am I?" And she's like, "That's one question. I got a bunch more. Like, for example, why are you in my throne room, whatever." And it's a pretty cool scene. Like, I always enjoyed Amalus, in the series. I used to read it when I was a kid, and it was one of the few comic book storylines I was really trying to actively collect as a kid. And so I've always liked the character, so it was cool to see the character come back. It was also kind of cool to see the character done in this very, like, dark and gritty kind of reimagining, because she looks a lot different than what I remember her from the 80s. And then the last thing we really have in the book is we have Impulse wakes up, he's by himself, and he makes, of all things, he makes a reference to Dr. Seuss, which I thought was really kind of weird. But he starts wondering where he's at or whatever, and all of a sudden he runs into this mysterious figure, and it's revealed to be Superboy of all people, who I'm assuming has been stuck here, is lost here. I don't know if Superboy's actually been missing in the comic books. I don't really I can't keep up with DC and Marvel anymore, but I'm assuming I guess he's been lost here. I don't know, because Kid Flash, keep calling him Kid Flash. Impulse seems to be very excited to see Superboy, like he hasn't seen him in a long time. So he runs up and, like, starts hugging Superboy, and he starts talking about him, and he says all this stuff, and he's like, "Wait a minute, how'd you get a beard?" Because Superboy has like some stubble. I wouldn't call it a beard based on this artwork, but he definitely has some stubble, some 5 o'clock shadow, or whatever. You can tell he's been here for a little while. He's been stuck here. And I really did enjoy this character design for Superboy. He's kind of mixing. I know they've been doing that recently, but he's mixing the '90s Superboy style or art, the art direction with the more like the Young Justice, what's become more traditional. So I thought that was cool. So all in all, I thought this was an okay issue at best. I didn't really like it that much. The saving grace for the book was the introduction of Jenny Hex, because I really did like her character, and I just like the idea of her character, and I'm kind of excited to see how she fits into the team, because she does kind of feel like the oddball on the team, like the wild card, I guess you could say. Another saving grace for me was involving Gem World into the story, because I've always, again, I'm a fan of that series. I'm nostalgic for it, and it's just something you don't see every day in DC. It's kind of like it's kind of like Earth 1 Superman. Every once in a while, he pops up in the main continuity, but he's not really like he's not like something you see every day. So it's kind of a treat when you do see it. But overall, I thought the writing was not that great. The comedy was really forced and was too much for me, and the art was nothing really special either. The way the team comes together kind of felt lazy and unimaginative. Like, oh, let's just have them all run over to the fight that's happening, and they all just start fighting together. Like, that just feels cliche. Like no effort was put into that. And like I said, just the dialogue itself just didn't feel good. Like, I didn't like it. There's really not a lot of story in this book. This book is almost exclusively just a big fight scene with a little tiny bit of setup at the beginning or introduction to characters. But overall, there's really almost no story here. We don't really get like any real sense of what's going on. It's just kind of like a bring the team together issue and fighting some bad guys. And overall, I wasn't impressed with the fight scenes. Like I said, the art wasn't that great. If I had to give this book a rating, through 1 to 10, I think I would give it probably like a 4. I'd put it below average, but not horrible. Thank you guys for watching. I would probably avoid this one, especially for full price. Unless you're just a Young Justice fanboy, then for all means, check it out. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. This has been my review. Stay tuned for other reviews, and see you guys later. Have a good day.